What would Jesus drink? Exploring Ancient Wines, Part 2. Hey, welcome back to Smokin' and Drinkin'. I'm Mike, and today we're going to continue our exploration of WWJD. What would Jesus drink? Again, it's the Lenten season, and we are exploring the different foods and wines that the people 2,000 years ago might have drank and ate. So we started with the Grenache style wine, which is the closest red grape style wine approximation that we could get. We talked a little bit about how they did things, possibly did things 2,000 years ago. We're going to continue on today with something a little different. We're going to make raisin wine. Most of the time, the people during Jesus' time drank grape wine because it was in season. They did grow grapes there. Sometimes, if grapes were not in season, they would make raisin wine. So we're going to give that a shot to see what we can do there. So let's get started. What we're going to do for our raisin wine, we have a few simple ingredients. We've got 2.5 pounds of organic black sultana raisins. I ordered these online. I can't get them at my grocery store here locally, but these are just organic black sultana raisins. You can also get golden sultana raisins. We wanted a red style or a dark. It's probably more of a brown or a reddish brown. The ingredients here are organic sultana raisins. There's no additives, no preservatives, so that's good. That won't hamper our fermentation process. Raisins don't have a high amount of sugar in them. These, I had to do some calculations based on the nutritional facts. They have the whole packet, 2.5 pounds or 1.13 kilograms, have about 680 grams of sugar in them. And that would get us about probably about 8 or 9% alcohol by volume. So we're going to add a couple pounds of sugar, actually 1 pound of sugar, which is 453.6 grams. And that equates to about 0.046 points of gravity, specific gravity. So 2.5 pounds of raisins, 1 pound of sugar should get us to approximately 15% ABV. And we'll do a gravity reading to make sure we're there. We may want to add more sugar, but the sugar in the raisins won't really resonate in the specific gravity reading because they haven't been extracted from the raisins yet. I could have soaked these in warm water overnight to help extract some of the sugars. That would have given us a little more accurate reading, but based on nutritional facts, we should get pretty close here. So along with that, we're going to use Lalvin K1-V1116 yeast. We're going to use a whole 5-gram packet, and we're also going to use some yeast nutrient because raisins don't have or sugar, neither have a real high amount of nutritional value. So we're going to use Fermate O. We're probably going to go with about, usually I put about 5 grams of Fermate O in a wine must. But since we don't have a whole lot of nutrients, we're probably going to go with 7 or 8 grams. I'm probably going to do about 8 grams, which is about a teaspoon and a half. I have a teaspoon measuring spoon here. Again, all of our equipment's been sanitized in the sand tub with Star San, and thought I had a crack on there. I do have a little bit of, nope, it's just a little hair. Sorry for the squirrel. So we're going to use Fermate O to help add some yeast nutrient to the raisin wine. Now, If you watched the other video on the Grenache, we added raisins for some tannic value. We only used about a pound of raisins. As you know, if you've ever seen a raisin swell up, they're going to swell up to the size of pretty close to their original size as a grape. So I was going to use my 1.3 gallon glass fermenter, but I think we're going to overflow in those grapes. We've got 2.5 pounds of raisins here. So we're going to use our 2-gallon fermentation bucket. It's been sanitized, and set that down so I don't knock it down. So we're just going to use our bucket. We'll have a lid with an airlock, but let's get started. I have chopped these raisins in a little bit in the Ninja food processor just to kind of open them up a little bit and give them a little more of a chance to exude all of their sugar. So we're just going to go ahead and dump those right in. 2.5 pounds. That's going to be a huge fruit cap. So we are definitely going to have to stir this daily so that we don't get mold or anything like that building up on the raisins. Oh, that's just a stem. We can leave that in there. There's a few little stems that go along with the raisins. If you've ever eaten a raisin, you might have noticed you got a stem or a seed. When they make wine, they leave the skins on the grapes, the seeds, the stems, the leaves, and you get all kinds of things in there. That helps with the tannic value, or gives it that more of a bold mouth feel, the tannins in there. So we're gonna do some more things to get a little higher tannin quality to this. Raisin wine typically doesn't have a real high tannic value. So, back 2,000 years ago, they would add things to it. They'd use fruit or honey to sweeten the wine. They might even a lot of times they use spices like cinnamon and clove. We're going to do a little bit of that. I didn't mention that, but we are going to try that as well. So that will help with that, give it a little more bold body to it. So, and bold flavor. All right, stop rambling, Mike, and continue on. So we need our water. We've got our 2.5 pounds of raisins. We are going to add 1 gallon of purified drinking water. Commit to the pour, Mike. Okay. And if you were going to pre-soak your raisins, you could use the same water that you were using for your must. So I could probably let this set overnight and just let them plump up, but they're going to do it anyway. We're just going to let it set and ferment. So yeah, you can see a few little skins and particles in there. Those are just from the grapes. So the grape plants. All right, so I could take a reading. We're not going to get a very high reading. It's going to be about 1.01 because there's not going to be a lot of sugar imparted in there yet. So we know we're going to have to add sugar. We are going to add 1 pound of sugar. And my scale has got sugar powder on there. I just used it a little while ago on another wine. But I can't put this on there. Usually I'll just put that on there, tear it out, and add the sugar to a pound. But this doesn't go up to, this only goes up to 11 pounds. And this is every bit of 12 pounds already. So we'll use our measuring cup. It's been sanitized. I let it air dry. It's pretty dry. It might get a little residual in there, left in there, but we need to tear that out. We are set on pounds and ounces. So we're just going to add a pound of sugar to our measuring cup. 1 pound. Okay, we've got our 1 pound measured out. Set that aside. We're just going to add that to our must. I don't know why, but they call it a must before it's wine. So if it was a beer, it'd be a wort. Don't know why they call it that either. All right, we need to stir this up really well so that all of that sugar dissolves. I've got my ridiculously long paddle here, and it's been sanitized. And we're just going to give this a good stir. It's going to take a while. There's a lot of raisins in there. So we'll check back when I've got this thoroughly stirred up. Okay, we've got that pretty well stirred up. I think we've got all of the sugar dissolved. I don't hear any grainy sounds that you get with sugar. So as I mentioned, we are going to also add some other ingredients. It was common back 2,000 years ago to add spices to the wine. It was generally for the more wealthy people because spices were expensive. We're going to pretend we're wealthy, and we're going to add some cinnamon. We're going to have 1 stick of cinnamon, and we're going to add a couple of cloves, whole cloves. Again, this would probably not be something, would not be common among the less wealthy folks, but we're gonna spice this a little bit. It was common to have spiced wine, so we're gonna add the cinnamon stick. Just drop the whole stick in there, and we're gonna add. You'll be very careful with cloves and spices; they can overwhelm a wine. We're gonna put 2 cloves in there. For mildly spiced, you'd want 1 clove. For a medium, maybe 2 to 3. We're gonna go with 2. And drop those in there. And before we get the yeast and the yeast nutrient in there, we're going to take a reading, see where we're at. Right now, it's mostly just sugar water. It is a must. It is our wine must. It's not wine yet. So hopefully we don't suck up the cloves. Almost got that one. Few of the raisins are starting to float. They're going to really puff up. Like I said, we're going to have to really keep an eye on that fruit cap and keep it pressed down and moist. So, okay, so right now we are at 1.0. Let's call it 1.050. So if that was the starting gravity, it would be pretty low ABV. Minus if we fermented dry, be 0.05 times 131.25, be 6.5%. But we know that there's a lot of sugar still trapped inside of the raisins. So we're not going to worry about that. We're going to jot it down. And I've gone back to the single sheet style of keeping notes that I can tape right to the bucket. I had switched to a journal, but that didn't work out as well. So some of the things we put on here is the name of the wine or mead or cider or beer or whatever we're making. We're going to call this, we called the other one WWJD wine. We're going to call this, where's WWJD raisin wine? And today's date and the starting gravity, we're going to put 1.050. We're going to put it in quotes because that's not the true, I mean, that is the starting gravity, but we know it's going to go up. So we're going to estimate, what did we estimate that at? 1.115. We're going to write that down. 1.115 estimated. And you might ask, why is that important? Well, if we want to calculate our final ABV, which isn't that terribly important, but we also want to know when it's done fermenting. And if we don't know where we start, we don't know where we finish. It may not ferment all the way dry, which would be 1.0 or below, but we're going to estimate 1.115, which we calculated would be, what did we say, 15%? Yeah, 15%. So we're going to go with that. It's all just approximations. We don't have the scientific equipment to truly know exactly what the alcohol by volume would be, but that's okay. We're just making this for ourselves, and if it seems low on ABV, we'll drink more. All right, so now we need to put some yeast nutrient in there because, as we know, raisins don't have a lot of nutrients, and sugar certainly doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. That's why our doctor says don't eat so much sugar. But I said we're gonna put. Normally, I use about 5 grams. We're gonna go with about 7 or 8 grams. I'm gonna do about a teaspoon and a half. So it's sanitized and air dried, so we won't make clumps in our bag. And that's about 5 grams. We're just going to do a guess here, about half of the teaspoon. It's not an exact science. That's almost perfectly half there. So that's going to be about 7.5 grams, 8 grams, somewhere around there. It won't hurt. It can only help. You can't over nutritionalize your yeast. So we are going to add some of our must and pre-mix this so we don't have it quite so clumpy. A little more. Okay. And I need my little spoon back. Again, if you're doing this at home, following along, you don't have to do this. It's just something I learned when I started making this and just kind of stuck with it. But okay, we're just going to dump that in, try and get as much out of there. We don't want it, doesn't do us any good in our measuring bowl. That just goes down the drain when we wash it. Okay, we got most of that out of there and off of the just give this a good stir just for fun. It's really not necessary. Get some of that off of the paddle, my ridiculously long paddle. All right, then we need our yeast. I didn't write that on my notes. I'll have to do that. We're using Lalvin K1 V116. That is a good fruit wine. It brings out fruity esters. Raisins are a fruit. They're nothing more than a dried grape. And it has a fairly high alcohol tolerance. I believe it's 14 to 16%. So when I say that, what I mean is certain yeasts can only ferment up to a certain level of alcohol. And then they just kind of shut down. They get overwhelmed. If you have a yeast that can only has a tolerance, alcohol tolerance of 12, it's most likely going to quit when it hits that level of alcohol. So if you want to control your how much it ferments, you use a lower tolerance of yeast. So if you want it a little sweeter, that is one way of ensuring that it completes the fermentation process and still leaves you with a little sweetness. If it ferments completely dry like mine usually do, I can back sweeten if I want it sweeter. And we may have to do that here. I don't know. I've never made a raisin wine, so I'm gonna give it a good stir here just for fun. Get as much of it off the paddle as we can. Okay. There's some clumps. Like I said, it will get in there. The yeast will get to it. Put all that back in the sand tub. Finish my notes. And if you haven't watched the other video, I'll leave a link somewhere up here for you to go to that. It's the WWJD. What did we call that? That was a Grenache style wine. So I'll put a link up there for that. I need to put our ingredients in here. And we did 1 gallon of purified drinking water and 1 pound of white granulated sugar and 2.5 pounds of black sultana, organic black sultana raisins. And sultana is the variety of the grape. They are different than California raisins. They do have a different type of flavor. You can, as I said, get golden sultanas, and they will have a different flavor and a different color. But these are the black sultanas. We added, we're going to call it 8 grams of fermented O, and we added 1 packet of Lalvin K1 V1116 yeast, and we added 1 stick of cinnamon and 2 cloves for spice. So I believe that is everything we needed to add to that. So the next thing we need is a lid and an airlock. So if you'll notice, this is just a bucket that I got from the grocery store. I think it had frosting or something in it. Cleaned it out real good, peeled the label off. Still some sticky from the label on there. Should have left it on. But had to drill a hole for the grommet and the airlock. Very simple. I don't remember the size. I'll have to make another video on how to make a fermenter, as well as other fermenters that I use. But you can buy these airlocks with the rubber grommets. I get mine on Amazon. I'm not an affiliate. They're not a sponsor. I just, you know how it is these days. You get everything from Amazon. So we're going to fill our airlock with some of the sand tub solution right out of the tub. Doesn't matter. I don't use water because little bugs like flies will swim right through there. Fruit flies especially. They love this stuff. But you can also use spirits, strong spirits like vodka or something like that. I just use the solution right out of the sand tub. Okay, that is it. I'm going to tape this on the bucket so I know what we did. And we're going to let that sit. Probably take a week or two. We'll watch the activity in the airlock. These buckets, although they have a rubber seal in them, they don't seem to allow as much activity in the airlock. They will bubble, but they're not going to go crazy. We probably won't have a volcano. If we do, there is a recessed area on the lid, so it does catch a lot of that. But we're going to let that go for about a week, and we'll check back. All right, we are back with our WWJD raisin wine. What would Jesus drink? And it's kind of an exploration of what people drank a couple thousand years ago. It's the Easter season, like I mentioned, and so we're just kind of exploring different types of things. And this is a raisin wine that we started a week ago. Let's get this off and take a peek. I did open it and stir it or press the fruit cap, the raisin cap, down about every day to make sure there wasn't any mold or anything weird building up on there. And it's been doing pretty well. The airlock's been basically doing nothing for a couple of days now. So, okay. Smells like a little like a very, very young wine. Um, let's take a look at that, see what that looks like. That's those raisins plumped up a little bit, but it's just a normal fruit cap that you get when you use fruit solids. So we're going to go ahead and take a reading, first of all, to see where we're at. That's interesting. We're also doing a Grenache with raisins, and the color variations are strikingly different. Um, you'll see that one coming up here too. They'll be done pretty close to the same time, so you'll get a chance to see both of them pretty much back to back. But this is coming out like a white wine, which is to be expected. Well, actually, I didn't expect that because these were black Sultana grapes. So I was a little surprised. I guess, um, because they're raisins, the skins, they've kind of given up the ghost there, but still, I was a little surprised. But it's an interesting color. It will turn out to be a white style wine. But let's see where we're at. 0.992. So I would say that is done. Okay, so let's just see where that puts us. Make a couple notes while we're at it. We started at, we were having a little trouble. The 1.050 is what we thought, but there was a lot of cloudiness to it. It was it was pretty thick. So we were estimating 1.115. We're going to go with that. 1.115 is our starting gravity minus 0.992 equals 0.123 times 131.25, 16.1%. So that is very respectable. 16% for alcohol. That's what do we use for yeast? We used Lalvin K1 V1116. So obviously the yeast tolerance is 16% or above, probably above. So, all right, let's jot that down so we don't forget. We're not quite ready to bottle yet, but final gravity of 0.992. Okay, so that is very interesting. Like I said, it smells like a wine. It's very, very young wine. But what we're going to do now is we're going to rack it to a wide mouth fermenter. Set this up here for some elevation so that we get our siphon going. I'm going to set that aside for now. All right, we're going to go below the raisin cap. Just get our siphon started. We'll probably get a few chunks in there, some raisins and whatnot. But that's okay. We're not bottling. We'll go ahead and rack this to the fermenter. We're probably going to let it sit and let it clear because obviously it's very cloudy. But you've seen me do this. We'll check back in a minute when this is done. Okay, that's all we seem to be able to get out of there. So we'll get the rest out of the hose. Whoops. And as you can see, we're a little bit low in the jar, in the fermenter. Don't like to have that much headspace. I think what we're going to do, you can see it's very cloudy. We have 16%. I think I'm going to add some water to get it up to above the shoulder. And I don't feel bad about that because, as I mentioned earlier, back 2,000 years ago, it was considered barbaric to drink wine without adding water to it. They didn't generally have that high of ABV, according to the history books anyway. So I'm going to add a little water, just enough to get it up above the shoulder so we don't have to worry about too much headspace and oxidization. So let me grab some water. All right, this is just purified drinking water. You know what? Before I add that, I forgot about this. That's right, RC Aeronet. You know what I'm doing. Gotta have a little taste. I'm not super excited about it because well, it's very young. I'm not going to make a big taste here. Just a mouthful. I'm going to add the rest back in here. That will raise the level somewhat. Still going to have to add some water. Try not to get any oxygen or any bubbles. Pour against the edge of the glass to minimize that oxygen from getting in there. Remember, oxygen is bad. Once you have alcohol present, it can oxidize the brew. Okay, so that brought it up a little bit. I'm going to add just a little bit of water too, but let's get a taste. See what that's like. It smells very young. Sometimes they describe it as a footy taste. I don't really know why. It doesn't smell like feet, but it doesn't smell pleasant necessarily. I can smell the wine flavor behind it, or the wine aroma behind it, and smell the alcohol, but it's very young. It needs to age for a while, but let's give it a taste. There's a lot of alcohol in there. It's pretty high. It's kind of fruity flavor though. It's not bad. If you can, like I said, it's very young. It's going to be really good in about 6 months or a year. But let's try that again. Sometimes it takes taste. Sometimes it takes a second taste to get past that initial alcohol shock. It is definitely a fruity type of flavor. It's very light, but I don't know. Can't wait to see what that's like in a year. But let's go ahead and add just a little bit of water. Like I said, it's not going to take much. This is purified drinking water. Just going to add enough to get it up over the shoulder a little bit here. I'm going to stop there. That's not too bad. And that's probably about, I'd say I probably added 8 ounces, not even that, 6 ounces. So let's take another reading and see what that did to our final gravity. It's probably going to drop it completely. It probably won't change it because we were at 0.992. But I'm curious. Just go lower, nothing else. But this is not an exact science. There's ABV is an estimate. And let's give it a stir just to mix that water in. As I was saying, without the scientific equipment, we won't know exactly what the ABV is, and nor do I really care that much. No, it's the same, 0.992. That's to be expected. I mean, but it will be a little lower alcohol. It will have, in effect, it raises our starting gravity, but not worried about it. I just want to make sure I don't get too much headspace. It's the only reason we're adding that. And to stay a little bit true to authenticity, like I said, they added water to their wine as much as 1-to-3 ratio. So we're just doing what they would have done in Jesus' time. But okay, now about all that we have left to do is put an airlock on it, let it sit for a few days. We'll check it again, but we're going to need to let it sit for probably a week or two to let that clear out. That will settle down to the bottom, and then we'll rack it again. But we need an airlock. Get that back on here, and we're going to let it sit. So better make a note. Make sure we don't forget anything. Date, final gravity 0.992. We racked to a wide mouth, and we added, I'm going to call it 6 ounces purified drinking water. Okay, put that on there. Put it back in the fermentation rack, and we're going to let it sit. See, you can see the, I don't know if you can see that, but the pressure, we got positive pressure there. That's carbon dioxide. I didn't degas, so there is carbon dioxide in there, and it will push that up. We'll probably get some bubbling, but I like to just let it set to degas. Some people will stir it. Some people use a drill and a whip. I just let it sit. Usually have to wait for it to clear anyway, and the carbon dioxide comes out just naturally. So we're gonna let it sit, and we'll be back in a few days for you, a minute or so. All right. All right. We've had the Black Santana raisin wine cold crashing in the refrigerator for about 5 days. Cold crashing helps to clear the wine and get all the sediment to drop to the bottom. It's done a pretty good job. There's quite a little bit of lees still on there, but I don't think it's done clearing. It's definitely a little cloudy, but I think we're gonna set it back into the fridge for probably a couple of weeks. It's going to take a little while. I don't think I want to add any other finings like bentonite or gelatin or anything like that. I think it'll settle on its own. So, but I do want to get a taste. Let's see. I believe we calculated, yes, this final gravity on this was 0.992, so it's pretty well finished. This is probably carbon dioxide, but we calculated the wine or the ABV at about 16%, so that's a pretty high ABV, but it's an interesting color. I really expected with the Black Sultana raisins this would be a dark wine, but it's going to be a white wine. You know, when you're experimenting, sometimes you have surprises, but you know, that's what we're doing here. We're just learning, and we've been trying to explore some of the ancient wine recipes. You know, what they did when they didn't have a good grape crop, they used raisins, and or at least that's what the best we can find in history, in the Bible and in the history books, historical documents. But let's have a taste. Got my mini sand tub here because I've only got one tool that I'm using. I don't want to take too much off because we're right at almost at the limit on headspace. So I'm just going to take a little bit. There's still some raisin skin pieces kind of floating on top. Those will all eventually drop to the bottom, but yeah, that's as much as I want to take there. But yeah, that'll all fall out of suspension eventually. I just like to wait, let it sit, use time to clear my wines. I don't always use any kind of chemicals or additives to clear it. I think time, it clears it, it degasses it. So, but yeah, that's an interesting color. It's almost looks like, I don't know, like a little bit like lemonade, but smells like wine. It's very young. It's got a very young footnote to it. That's going to take some time. You know, raisins aren't the most robust version of a grape, so but the aroma is interesting. If you can get past that footnote, there's a little bit of a fruit note to it. So it's definitely got the alcohol bite to it right now. That'll mellow out a little bit, but it's an interesting fruity flavor. It's almost a citrusy, tangy flavor. Yeah, we added cinnamon and cloves, but I believe we pulled those out when we racked it. But it's got a little bit of there's a tiny little bit of the cinnamon flavor to it, a little bit of a spice. So more on the acidic citrusy flavor. It's very interesting. It's kind of a refreshing summer kind of wine, I think. This is going to be good in about 6 months to a year. So I think that'll about do it for the What Would Jesus Do Black Sultana Raisin Wine. Now we'll bring you back in 6 months or a year for a tasting, and appreciate y'all tuning in to Smokin and Drinkin. Remember to hit that subscribe button and that like button, and if you want to know when we have more videos coming out, hit the bell, the notification bell. As always, Prost!